Hi, everybody, and welcome to our university webinar today. Today, we're going to talk about 5 steps to running a successful university fleet. Running a fleet in the higher ed world is a complex business. As you know, with the diverse set of stakeholders, you have to represent faculty, staff, and students, as well as a variety of vehicles to support a campus that's a city within a city. So in this webinar today, we're going to cover 5 key areas that successful fleet managers must consider when they're managing their fleet. My name is Kathy Wellik, and I will be leading today's webinar, and I'm on the client success team at Agile Fleet and a former director of an award-winning university fleet. My goal is to help you and your staff run your fleet as efficiently and as successfully as possible. I hope you enjoy today's presentation. Before we begin, I do have a couple things that I'd like to go over with you. These quarterly university higher ed seminars are part of the Fleet Commander's Knowledge series. Your feedback's needed to identify topics for quarterly webinars. So at any time, please email me, call me, or put notes into the chat as to what we can help discuss in further detail that would be beneficial to you and your peers. This webinar is being recorded and will be available to folks after tomorrow when we have the recording sent out. A recording and a copy of those slides, like I said, will be sent out via SharePoint tomorrow. And your mic will be muted during this webinar. So again, since mics are muted, please ask questions. No question is a dumb question at all, and use the chat window to ask your questions. You can see the icon on the top that you will click to show the conversation, and then type your question and tell us your first name and name of your organization. So what are 5 steps to running a successful university fleet? It's hard to put into words all the steps that you need for a fleet, right? It could be 5, it could be 10, it could be 3, depending on your fleet. But our objectives today are to establish and track our KPIs. As the old adage goes, you can't manage what you can't measure. And that's why KPIs are so important to your team and your leadership for the visibility and the health of your fleet operation. You also want to engage employees and customers. So your processes and systems will work to the extent that your employees and customers buy in. So we're going to learn some strategies to rally and keep support for your cause and make sure they're using your vehicles instead of outsourced vehicles through outside rental companies. Or even worse yet, if they're using their personal vehicles, because as we know, personal reimbursement of mileage is a very high cost to your fleet. Leverage automation to serve your customers. With so much to tackle, automation is critical to ensure that your team is spending time on high-value work, and you can learn how to automate and lift administrative burdens. We're going to take a look into total cost of ownership and how to understand that, because the single source of truth about the cost of your vehicle assets provides the foundation for effective strategic decisions. So we're going to get to know the TCO and its time-saving benefits. And last but not least, we're going to talk about creating a proper preventative maintenance program. Safety, risk mitigation, cost effectiveness, and vehicle longevity are all a part of that. So much of a fleet manager's success is wrapped up in proper maintenance management. Make sure you're following best practices for your fleet. So let's go on to establish and tracking our KPIs. Again, the importance of KPIs. It provides value to strive for to ensure peak performance. It's a visual indicator to know if you're meeting your goals or not. Yes, it's easy to say if you have a list of KPIs and you're just going down that list, you can say, yep, I'm doing it. Yep, I'm doing it. Yep, I'm doing it. But without the actual visual with the number or the word, you don't know that you truly are. So a KPI is a visual indicator that you're meeting your goals or not. It measures progress towards larger goals. And it also helps organize your data for meaningful feedback. So what are some examples of key performance indicators? And remember, these are just examples. Your fleet might use some other KPIs because each fleet is different, even though we're all very similar. But the top one, utilization, that should be key to any fleet. Utilization is so important in saving money and right-sizing your fleet. Another item that we should be looking at potentially is completed reservations. And we'll go into each one of these in more detail later here in the program. On-time preventative maintenance, technician productivity, total cost of ownership, training, compliance to policy and safety, and customer feedback are also examples of other important KPIs for your fleet. So let's take a deeper dive. Utilization is vital to your fleet operation for many reasons. You can identify savings of underutilized vehicles. You can reduce risk by having newer vehicles with better safety features in your fleet because you're turning the vehicles more often. And you can create efficiencies. In this example, we're showing the overall utilization of an entire fleet year over year from 2020 to 2023, which if you look at this, it's wonderful that the fleet utilization on average is over 93%, when a good utilization is 80% or higher. However, if you peel back the onion, what does this story really tell us about utilization? So there's many ways that you can show or display your utilization. There's so many different types of charts and graphs. The type I'm using might be what you choose, but you might choose others as well. I know some people like bar graphs, some people like line graphs. So remember, make it the data your own with however you find it visually appealing. So when we take a look at this particular utilization here, we're comparing every month, so in January, each different type of vehicle, sedan, SUV, and a 7-passenger van, and then the average. When we do this, we can see that in the months of January through April, the utilization is down. For university fleets, that's quite common as the winter months are upon us and so forth, and not as many vehicles go out. Plus, most universities are closed for the holiday season for an extended period of time and for spring break. So it makes sense that some of these months have fewer utilization uses. However, is that a time where you maybe can outsource some of your fleet? Or is your fleet utilization high enough throughout the rest of the year that it's okay that if those vehicles are not being fully utilized during those months? And remember, each fleet is different, so it's important that you're looking at your utilization and your KPIs on a regular basis so you can identify your own trends amongst your own vehicles. So I know this graph here is not the most appealing with the spaghetti because there's a lot of things going on here, but I think it's a great visual of where we're really pulling back the layers of that onion to better understand utilization and what it looks like and what it needs to look like. So in this example, 2 out of 5 vehicle types need attention. So those that need attention are the yellow line, the compact truck, because as you can see, it's on the bottom and it's barely getting any utilization. And then the gray line. The gray line is the compact SUVs. So on this chart, I put the fact that April 3rd is when 3 of those vehicles went into service. So January, February, or March, there's no usage because they weren't there. In April, there were some vehicles that were added. Okay, so what does this tell us? It tells us a couple different things. So if we go to that gray line, the gray line indicates that they don't have much utilization with that compact SUV until November. So why is that, and how do we fix it? So is that something where they finally advertised it and might let customers know that they have those compact SUVs in the fleet, because maybe people didn't know when they first came out? And then the second one that we need to take a look at again is that compact trucks, in which the fleet has 10 of them. These vehicles are used less than 20% on a good month. So these vehicles are not a good thing to have in the fleet. So this fleet could save $200,000 in capital expenditures and $35,000 a year in operating expenses if they got rid of those compact trucks. What could your fleet do with $235,000? So here in this chart in 2023, comparing the same vehicles to 2022, you can see that here that the gray, which was the compact SUVs, were new vehicles in their lineup, and it took a few months for them to let people know that those vehicles were part of the fleet. And then also the SUVs are a popular winter vehicle. This is a case where they needed to get the word out and that the compact SUVs were in the fleet. So as you can tell, they are now getting utilized and they are a value of the fleet. But you wouldn't know that if you weren't checking on a monthly basis. So what about those 10 compact trucks? That yellow line is still there, and they need to consider getting rid of those vehicles or outsourcing the vehicles. And some people I know have been holding on to vehicles since vehicles are hard to get, but that really is starting to ease up a little bit more, and you're starting to order more vehicles and be able to get them. So just keep that in your mind, that it does cost money to keep fleets in your vehicle, or vehicles in your fleets, excuse me, that you aren't utilizing on a regular basis, because you still have to do the maintenance, you still have to do the insurance, you still have to pay parking, you still have to do all kinds of expenses on those vehicles, which equal on average very conservatively $3,500 a month. Our next KPI, completed reservations. In this example, the number of completed reservations can show many different things, so you will want to make sure that you use this in conjunction with other KPIs like utilization that we just looked at. So I personally, when I had my fleet, liked to know how many reservations we had at our location every year. But the reason I also needed to watch utilization was to make sure that the increased reservations didn't add more cars. So car sharing is really where you get the real bang for your buck in fleets. Lots of drivers think they want to have their own vehicle, but should they really? So when people share vehicles, the vehicles get replaced sooner, and the fleet ends up with newer vehicles with more safety features and saving money. So here's how it shows the amounts of cumulative savings that the fleet has had by automating their system with a key control unit. So while this savings is amazing, you take the number of reservations and the time saved, which includes people used to have to fill out a paper form, go have their employer sign it, get that form over to fleet, whether snail mail or email or walk it over, and then somebody else had to go ahead and enter that information into a system, and then there was a dispatcher that had to dispatch the keys, then a cleanup person who had to go get the mileage every morning, and so forth. So by automating this system and using vehicle car sharing that Agile Fleet offers, you can save at least 30 minutes per reservation. If you take that reservation count and divide it by 2, because there's 2 sets of 30 minutes in an hour, and take that times $20 an hour, which is the cost of those employees and benefits and everything, and that's a very conservative number. That, in this example, right alone is $124,000 in savings. So while that savings is amazing, let's think about this in yet a different way. When your drivers share vehicles and say there's 5 drivers to one vehicle instead of one driver to one vehicle, that's a savings of 4 vehicles or $80,000 in capital expenses if each vehicle cost an average of $20,000. And then your operating expenses again are about $3,500 very conservatively. So there really is a ton of savings that you can do both on staff side savings and capital expenditures and operating expenditures when you right size and car share in your fleet. So let's understand total cost of ownership as a KPI. So total cost of ownership is a standard framework that can be used on any asset type, including vehicles and equipment, in addition to other asset classes to compare overall performance. So by understanding total cost of ownership, you can identify all costs, direct and indirect, and specials that are associated with the purchase. It levels the playing field, allowing for direct comparison of similar assets amongst different vendors. TCO is the sum of net acquisition costs, direct or indirect operating costs, incidental costs, and disposal or salvage value necessary to support the vehicle or asset. So this helps you operate your fleet in the most efficient way possible based on requirements. And it helps you understand your real costs of operating assets. So some of these, like your fixed operating expenses, that is what it takes for you to make sure that the doors are open every day. So what does it take for your building, for your staff? Variable non-operating expenses could be different items that you need for the shop. Maybe you want to buy some new toolboxes. Maybe you want, for operating costs, maybe you need a new car wash. Acquisition costs would be the new vehicles. Incidental costs are different upfits and so forth, for example. And disposal and salvage value, what are you going to get for that vehicle when that vehicle is sold to put back into your fleet? There also need to be KPIs for goals for preventative maintenance. And why do you need KPIs for preventative maintenance? Because you need to make sure of what's going on in the shop to make sure it's efficient and maximize those efficiencies. So having goals on your preventative maintenance allows for the majority of work orders to be preventative maintenance versus repair. So at least 80% of your maintenance work orders should be preventative maintenance. It should be items coming in for oil changes and tire rotations and so forth. And only 20% should be repair. So where something happened and broke down, because in preventative maintenance, you should be able to be catching those things before they become a repair. So you want to have goals around those. And, what is your on-time goal for making sure your lube oil and filters are done on time? Is it 95% within 10 days of the due date or mileage? Is it 100%? You need to make sure you're keeping those KPIs. You also want to make sure that you're doing a great preventative maintenance because it reduces downtime on vehicles, it reduces costs, it improves driver safety because they're safer in the vehicle knowing that things are taken care of ahead of time. And it reduces risk to the fleet for accidents or items that are unexpected. Another KPI that you might want to do is track and manage technician time. Again, this is going to be based on what your needs are for your fleet, what your actual KPI will be. But the importance of that KPI is you need to know how much direct versus indirect labor your technicians are doing. So what are you basing the budget on? They should be turning wrenches so many hours a day. However, we do know that there's vacation time, there's sick time, there's breaks, there's training. So all those things have to come out of your technician labor hours. So how many hours is it that your technicians are actually turning wrenches? And it's usually probably closer to 75 to 80%, but it's going to vary depending on your particular fleet. I know I based my fleet on 75% of their hours being direct turning wrenches, and that is how I calculated my labor rate. Which technician is doing more work orders? Do you have someone who's just flying through the work orders very quickly and someone who's not pulling their weight, or is someone going through them too quickly? So just identifying trends, again, that's what KPIs are all about, right? Efficiency, improvements, monitoring. You just got to stay on top of these things and having numbers to work with so you can see how you're growing and improving. Also, does the technician have any comebacks? You know, if somebody is cranking through a lot of work orders very quickly, do they have comebacks? Are they forgetting any steps? So those are all things that you want to keep track of. Customer satisfaction KPIs. I know that it's super easy to have customer satisfaction feedback in the Agile fleet system. And our goal was to be above 94% on a combined customer satisfaction rating. So to get to that combined customer satisfaction rating in Agile fleet, we have a scoring method for staff, vehicles, the system, and then the average of all of that ends up being the overall average in the top wheel there. So customer satisfaction KPIs are important for so many reasons. Number one, vehicle reliability. So with that, you need to make sure that your customers are happy, the vehicles are reliable, they're getting where they need to be. If there's an issue with that vehicle, you need to change it. Sometimes somebody might leave a comment that it shimmies at 55 miles per hour. Okay, that's fantastic. We didn't know that when we were driving across the parking lot to clean it at 3 miles an hour. So just those little comments where they can leave that to help with that reliability. The satisfaction with the system, staff friendliness. Again, you want to be the place of choice. You have to run your fleet, even though you're in a university, you have to run it like a business. It's a business, and you need to make sure you're running it as efficiently as you can. You want to identify issues. Yes, when they leave the positive feedback, it's great feedback for staff meetings and so forth that you can do and provide people. But you also want to make sure that you see the bad comments if there are any, because that's where you can improve, because you don't want that business walking out the back door. The next KPIs you should build around are effective staff training and correct certification. So what do we mean by that? Now, some fleets have an actual goal of, say, each employee has to have 8 hours of training a year. So it can be making sure that each employee has that, or each employee needs to take at least one course a quarter. Those are easy things there that you can, work with on KPIs. But why do you need that KPI? Because if you have trained people, say your technicians are ASC certified and so forth, or GM certified or Ford certified, it means better service, right? It's more confidence from your clients because they know that you've invested in your people and you're allowing them to have additional training, which gives them that upper advantage and that upper hand of knowing how to handle their vehicles when they're in the shop. Job done right the first time. Fewer callbacks in the shop. But training is not just on the shop either, right? So training can also be in the dispatching side. It can be in the management side. Have you trained with CAFM? Are you taking sustainability classes? Are you doing webinars with NCSFA? There's different organizations and so forth. Your vendors can provide training as well. Just make sure it's available, because staff morale and so forth will improve too if they're allowed to train. So let's move on now that we've had a lot of KPIs and you got a lot of numbers brewing and so forth, and you're thinking, what should I do? Hopefully we gave you a few ideas of what you can do in your fleet, and remember, tweak it to be your own. But what are some ways we can also engage employees and customers? So let's take a look at that. It's very important that we have, great first impressions and great engagement and so forth with our clients. Because again, you want to be the fleet of choice. You do not want people outsourcing and going to enterprise and so forth, or another rental company. You can run your fleet cheaper, better, stronger if you do best practices. So it all even starts with your homepage, right? A lot of folks have a homepage that is still just the set homepage. We talk about it a lot when we visit people on on-site visits and stuff. It's like your system homepage looks like this, but it could look like this. So your homepage could look like it does on the left. You can add pictures, you can add links and so forth. First impressions are so important. So I highly encourage you to go ahead and make those first impressions count. Go ahead and work with your client success folks to help get these pictures online and so forth, and help give your customers the visual that you know what's going on, and you got this. And also engage them by allowing them and having different resources. So in the bottom area of the main information tab, each of these areas has different links that you then can add information. Don't leave them blank. Add information. For example, a policy. So engage them in the policy, and also in that engagement, make sure that they're signing off on the policy and at a certain rate of time. So, for example, in the beginning and every 6 months or every year, make sure that your drivers are signing off on the fleet policy. That helps, even if they didn't read it, they said they did, and that helps if you have an HR issue with the driver later and so forth. And also helps please audit, right? So you want to make sure that audit approves of what you're doing and that you're covering yourself. And that is a great tool to be able to do it. So engage them with as much information as you can and as many tools as you can. Other ways to engage your customers, newsletters. Hopefully you found that we're trying to do newsletters, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as far as engagement at our fleet user conference. Go ahead and give us information. So provide your clients with newsletters. Send them emails. It is so easy with our email tool to send out an email to all your drivers and requesters. Within a minute, you can send out to all your users an email. So if you don't know how to use those tools, reach out to client success or FC support, and we'll help show you how to do that. Get the customer feedback. And when you respond to that feedback, if they leave your name and you actually respond to what they said, wow, is that great customer service? They're like, wow, you really listen. So make sure you're doing those little personal touches like that. Videos are a great thing to do. I know sometimes people are intimidated by it. It doesn't have to, you don't have to be a rock star or hire, anybody from Hollywood to do your videos. Just videotape somebody doing the normal motions that you have to do to get into the kiosk and so forth. It's not that hard. It does take time, but I also highly encourage you in a university setting Tap into the talents of those young adults that are at the university. Have them do some of these projects for you. Have them help design your homepage. Have them help you, excuse me, design the newsletter or emails. Provide webinars to your customers about what changes are coming up or tips and tricks for Agile. Do lunch and learns. There's many ways you can engage your customers. So let's take a deeper dive into the newsletters. We did do newsletters. They were successful. What we did was we had pictures of customers' vehicles. So you have all these different vehicles in your fleet in a university. Like we had a vet truck that was upfit that could actually do surgery out in the field. You have police cars. You have pickup trucks that test concrete as they're driving down. You have admissions reps that have to go all over the country and maybe Canada and so forth. You have ag people that go to all these different field sites and test equipment for John Deere. There's so many places that your vehicles go. Encourage people to send in pictures of your vehicles while they're at those places. It also shows the value you provide to those higher ups at the university, right? Sometimes fleet's the forgotten child, but just really have customers participate, have contests. In your newsletter, have different, driving tips, agile tips and tricks, the services you offer, and then have a contest at the end. Give away something really simple, but the answer is somewhere in the newsletter. But even if they play, go ahead and allow them to win, even if they have the answer wrong. You can do this in like Constant Contact and so forth. It's so easy. So you have 250 people that played. Go to your staff member and say, pick a number between 1 and 250. 37, great. The 37th person that answered, they're the winner. So just simple engagements like that. I know we gave away little wireless mouse cars that had our university name on it, and everybody was trying to get it. And it was kind of fun because it just left a buzz on campus. Next, after that, communication is so important. Leverage your automation to serve customers, right? Automation is so important in this day and age, and it's changing so quickly. Everything's automated these days, it seems like. I know my mother is 85 years old, and the other day she told me, she's like, I just don't get all this technology. I don't know that I should be in this world. Think of the technology she's had, though, from the horses, although they did have a car, but they also had horses that they went around on too. From the horses and those early days of having a car, and TV wasn't in existence and so forth, and now you can watch a movie on the plane while you're 30,000 feet above the air. There's so many changes, and automation is so important. So how do we automate for the customers, and how do you show that value to them? So automating the vehicle reservations. Everybody can make their own reservation, or they can make a reservation for someone else. Say, I know in the university setting, there's a lot of situations where like an admin will make the reservations for a whole semester. That's okay. And we automate when we're doing those reservations. You can do submit, make similar, and do a whole lot of reservations in just a short amount of time. So automate that as much as you can. We've also automated the customer's view so the customers can view their own schedule. They don't have to call you anymore and say, hey, do I have a reservation on such and such a date? All they have to do is sign on their phone or their iPad or their computer, and they can pull up their schedule. And they can make changes to their schedule. They can cancel a reservation, make a reservation. So that automation is in there, and you have to teach them, right? So let your customers know that that automation is up there and where they can find it when they call you and ask for help. So with the automation on the dashboards and stuff too, staff can quickly monitor and adjust what the clients need from the dashboard. So for example, there's a pending request here. You can just click on that and you can fix that pending request. What is it that that person needs? And this is actually from a test site. So normally you would not see that many late pickups and that many late returns. If I were working the dispatch desk, the first thing I would do when I came in the morning, I would be looking for the late pickup, late returns, and those pending requests. So we're getting people taken care of and out the door. And this makes it so easy. The dashboard, you can see, what's departing, what's coming back, how many vehicles are out. Automation is so important. Then at a glance on the technician side, you can see what top tasks are by cost, what the top work orders are. You can manage your activity real time and create work orders from the dashboard. It tells you what your PMs versus RMs are. What are those preventative maintenance versus repair maintenance? How quickly are we getting work orders closed? This quick glance can help so much and just automates everything so you don't have to go looking other places. You can focus here and do what you need to do. Mileage reporting is another thing that's automated that your clients can do. So they can just go into their vehicle and so forth that they have assigned to them, and they can go ahead and they can put in the mileage and add that trip. It's all automated for you. You don't have to be chasing them down by emails and asking them to send you an email what the mileage is and you going in and correcting it. They can do it right there. So take advantage of that automation. And again, drivers have access to their own reports, right? So there's lots of different reports that they have access to, and just teach your clients about this. This is where the lunch and learns come into play, or the newsletters. Give them the tools to know what a great system you have and make your life easier, because it's all automated. Because I know you guys have a million different things to do during a day. And in fleet, it's often like your firefighters, because you have your best day planned and then a tire blows out or somebody has an accident and your day shifts. So the more you can automate and remind people of where they can find the information, the better off you are. Again, this is how to automate that policy acknowledgement. So go ahead and make sure that the users are required to read the policy at login, and then also have an expiration date. So this one, for example, is 180 days. So every 180 days after they accept it, they're going to have to accept it again. And audit's going to want to look at that. If there's ever an accident or anything like that, risk management's going to want to look at this. When was their MVR approved? When did they accept the policy? How many reservations have they had? So use the system to its full potential. And then automated key control. This was game changer. Now, when I first had Agile Fleet for my fleet, I did not use the key control at first. And then when I got the key control, I didn't use the RFID at first. And those are both things that I learned very quickly. I should have done it sooner. So automating the key control can save you so much money and is so user-friendly and helpful for customers. Automating that dispatch of the keys 24/7, 365 is game changer to your business model. You can right size your fleet. So for example, our biggest right sizing was we had 46 15 passenger vans. We were able to go down to 31. Why is that? Because everybody needed vans on the weekends and we were closed. So on Fridays, we were giving out keys between 3 and 5 for Saturday and Sunday vehicles. Well, the customer had to come back. You had to have, more vehicles because you had to give them sets of keys for the vehicle and so forth. And so we had to have a lot more vehicles. Once we were able to put them in the kiosk and multiple people can use that same van over the weekend, we're able to you take that 15 vehicle reduction of 15 times however much a 15 passenger van costs you, that's your capital savings right there, let alone your operating expense savings that you have of 15 fewer vehicles of that type. So right size your fleet. I understand people say, well, I need to have my vehicle whenever I need to go. Well, you need to tell them the benefits of not having just a one-to-one relationship. It could be cheaper rates. It can be you're going to get a newer vehicle with with greater safety features because the vehicles are going to be replaced quicker. You're going to have somebody that actually cleans your vehicle and so forth if you do. Because a lot of fleets have people that clean vehicles and so forth to give the customer a better experience. So it's going to be better customer service and so forth. And you just have to really show the pros and cons, but really there's more pros than cons. So make sure that you're allowing your customers to know what those pros are of the automation system. Total cost of ownership. We're going to take just a little bit deeper dive because you have to know the total cost of ownership, right? It's not just putting fuel in a car and changing the tires on a car and allowing people to drive. Total cost of ownership is the purchase price plus the operating cost. That's your total cost of ownership. So those operating costs can be fixed and variable. So those variable are going to be fuel and maintenance. Those fixed are going to be your overhead. What is it cost to open the doors with the staff that you have, with the benefits that they have, and so forth? Because oftentimes your benefits cost 47 to 53% of what their income is. So don't forget the benefit portion as well. It's not just what their salary is. But you need to recover that. You need, you have insurance on the cars, you have insurance on your building. You might have loss of use insurance if you have a tornado come through and your vehicles are destroyed and you have to be closed for 4 weeks, loss of use and so forth. So all those insurance policies, all that overhead, the new tools that you might need, any capital improvements that are coming down, all of those are a true total cost of ownership, right? So it's very important that you make sure and keep track of every little expense and have that in your rate setting if you charge rates. And even if you don't charge rates, you really need to know this stuff and where your total cost of ownership is at, because otherwise you don't know how to be efficient and so forth. You don't know where those efficiencies are. It's just you're blindfolded and you're shooting at a dartboard. So make sure you know where all your costs are, because in the overall picture, even if you aren't charging your customers back, you're still doing what's best for the university. And when you're saving the university money, that money can go towards other things such as improvements, staff raises, and so forth. So be good stewards, of the funds. So the total cost of ownership, again, it's just as important to your vehicles as an oil change. So you got to know all the costs, your depreciation, insurance, all of that. And to me, it only makes sense to have all your costs in one system. So you're not having to get your costs from other systems. Import your fuel or download your fuel, put your depreciation in. You can now, with our simple total cost of ownership tool, you can put insurance across the vehicles. You can, once a year or monthly. There's so much that you can do that's automated. So just, again, work with client success or FC support or your implementation team if you're still implementing, and find out from us how you can better use these tools to be more efficient. And now let's take a deeper dive into creating that effective preventative maintenance program, because again, preventative maintenance is so important on your vehicles. So what are the benefits of maintenance? So you're going to track the maintenance and operating costs, so you have those for your total cost of ownership. You're going to track your technician direct and indirect time, which helps with rate setting and total costs. You're going to monitor, organize, and manage maintenance activities. You're going to improve efficiency. You're going to reduce asset downtime. And if you do have people that are bringing vehicles into the shop, it's really nice if you can give them a loaner so they don't lose productivity, right? So it's very helpful if you have a loaner vehicle that maybe you just charge a mileage instead of a daily rate. So it might be something that's not their exact vehicle because you don't have a plumber's truck, for example, as a loaner, but giving them a pickup or a car to at least get to their job site, and maybe they can use some tools from another plumber on site. That's very helpful, and that improves efficiency. You're going to reduce asset downtime, reduce maintenance expense, and you're going to extend the useful life of the assets by having a great maintenance program. So an outstanding preventative program is a must, like I said, for any shop. And of all the work that comes through your shop, again, 80% needs to be preventative maintenance and 20% repair. If it's opposite, then you've got some real challenges on your hand, and you need to make sure you relook at your maintenance program. Establishing and customizing the preventative maintenance schedule is crucial to ensure the optimal performance and longevity of the different types of vehicles. So it's important to identify the needs of each of those vehicles, taking into the account the manufacturer's recommendations, the usage patterns, and environmental conditions of your fleet. And factors that may affect the frequency of maintenance required for certain vehicles include the type of the vehicle, the age of the vehicle, the mileage, the terrain, and the type of fuel used. For example, heavy-duty trucks in harsh terrain or extreme temperatures may require more frequent maintenance than light-duty vehicles. So once you've identified these factors, you can create a maintenance schedule that specifically is geared towards the task and intervals for each type of vehicle. So automating preventative maintenance tasks for fleet vehicles with the system, you can do maintenance reminders and notifications because they're automated right there in the system. You can send those to the fleet managers or maintenance personnel. You can divide the work up as to who is going to be assigned what work order. The system captures the data on all PM maintenance completed, as well as any repair, parts, inventory, and labor required. This information can easily be accessed from the dashboard, like we talked about previously, providing fleet managers with a comprehensive overview of their fleet maintenance history. Again, effective online tracking of technician productivity. I know we kind of are preaching to the choir here as we bring this up in, multiple different areas, but it's true, and you cannot look at this enough. So it's a crucial element of your PM program, and you need to optimize the program's effectiveness. So it's essential to track both labor in the direct and indirect categories. So that includes time spent in breaks and meetings and so forth. So the system will track in user-friendly and intuitive ways to ensure ease of use. And the technicians are forced to rely on a great system that doesn't have cumbersome paper process or repeated logging in and logging out. So it's a user-friendly interface to make sure that they're maximizing their time. And with that, you're going to see which technician does the oil changes. You're going to identify trends. You're going to identify strengths and weaknesses and so forth when you're tracking the technician time in the work orders. So I've thrown a lot at you today. In recap, we talked about establishing and tracking KPIs. I give you some examples of KPIs to use, but reminded you that everybody's KPIs might be different because you're a unique fleet, right? So yes, we all have a lot of similarities, but we do have differences as well. Engage your employees and customers. Let them know, what the KPIs are and what you're doing in the fleet and how the fleet is of value to the clients and so forth and customers, and why the customers should use your fleet versus a personal vehicle. Then we also talked about leveraging the automation to serve your customers. There's so much automation that you can do. And like I said, RFID reader with the kiosk and key control was absolute game changer in our business model and saved us hundreds of thousands, actually a couple $1 million that I identified the first few years. So you really want to take a look at that. And then understand the total cost of ownership and make sure that that's in one system. And then, the heart and soul of all these KPIs and so forth, and all the fleet and supplying your customers and so forth, is that efficient and effective preventative maintenance program, right? So making sure those cars can go down the road safely and get your drivers from one place to the other. So I think we got lots of good stuff covered today. And I will now open it up for any questions that you may have.